Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and today I want to talk about what is the hobby. That's a really random and stupid question, really, because we know what the hobby is wargaming, which is building, painting, playing with models. It's not that difficult to understand, and it's not that hard to sort of realize what the hobby is. Now, I've said there's many pathways into the hobby, as always. You can get in through the books, you can get in through video games, friends, etc., YouTube, whatever. There's many ways into the wargaming hobby. If you're a big fan of World War Two, you study the history of it, you might want to play Bolt Action. If you're into comic books, you might want to play Walking Dead or Judge Dredd. Video games, you've got Halo, and coming up Assassin's Creed. So there's loads of ways to get into the hobby, but the hobby itself is building, painting, and playing with miniatures. That is the wargaming hobby. And like I said, if this seems to be obvious, but it's a point I've noticed so many times to be going straight over people's heads when it comes to anything slightly political. Now, I've said, and I will say it again because I think it's important, that this hobby is immune from any sort of political incursion or influence, mainly because of the individualistic nature of it. You can build and paint your models however you wish. You could even go by the color schemes that the companies suggest, like Dark Angels being dark green for 40k and black for Horus Heresy. Or you could go your own way and paint them whatever you want. You could paint them bright pink, or it's absolutely up to you. It's your hobby. It's how you do it. And the same with building the army. The armies are definitely, again, very much individualistic unto the person. They're very personal on how people build their armies. I always build very, very fast armies. I like fast armies, so I build that sort of army. So personally, if you see me on a battlefield, you'll see a very much a glass cannon, but fast and effective to capture objectives. They might not hold them, but they can get there to hold it before the stronger units that will be able to hold it for longer can actually get there. So that's sort of my play style. And also I like a nice diverse army, lots of different models, lots of different units. If I can, I'll try and make an army without copying the same unit twice. And look, I tried to do it with Death Guard. I ended up with like 6 units and that was it. But with Warrior Nations, I've got like 54, all the units are completely different. I don't have a single repeating unit. Now my daughter has decided to steal some of my wolves. Anyway, that's the thing. So even this army creation is a very individualistic, very, very personal, I should say, way of doing the hobby. It's going to be different from person to person unless you follow and decide to copy someone's tournament list. I don't know why you would, because that's not your army. You're copying someone else. This is a personal choice to yourself. And so that's what I think. And so wargaming is that. That's wargaming. Now, we're seeing this quote-unquote attacks on the hobby because of DEI or wokeism or whatever you want to call it. I really don't know, and I'm at this point not even caring because, it's not attacking my hobby. I'm still building models that I like. I'm still painting them how I wish. And it doesn't affect it. This affects the law side. I get it that people like the law, they read lots of the law, but to say the law is the hobby as a whole or centralizing the hobby around it, to me seems like a fallacious argument to make. First things first, you can play these games without ever reading any law. Let's take Conquest for example. You get the rulebook in some of the older warbands, or you download it, you won't see the law in that book or that download because it's a rule book and it's full of rules and rules alone. So you can literally play Conquest, pick an army with Spires, Old Dominion, 100 Kingdoms, etc. And you never have to learn any law about it to enjoy the game. Same with Wild West Exodus, even 40k and Horus Heresy, you don't have to learn the law. Now, one thing I do like about Horus Heresy, which I've got to say, is though as an objective point of view, I can understand why people don't like it. That is, in the Liber books, their codex, that there's so little law. I can understand why people don't like that, and in a game like Warhammer 40k, an army book should have at least a decent amount of lore in it. Even if you read it or not, it's sort of what it should do. They're just rule books. They've just got all the data sheets and numbers in it with some lore, very little. The lore is in the campaign books. And like I said, the lore isn't the central part, and it shouldn't be maintained as the central part. It just is a extra thing. Now, I'm an old goat. I'm an old greybeard, and whatever you want to call me, an old beard, whatever. And I remember when the lore was called the fluff. And the reason it was called fluff is because it's filling. It's what you fill stuff. You just fill it with fluff, like a pillow. It's fluff. But that's why it was always called fluff. It was just the filler to your game, to add that extra little bit of excitement to it. But at the end of the day, even without that, it's kind of still going to be fun. Wargaming is still going to be fun with or without the lore. And the focus of this hobby, like I said, you can say you're part of a hobby and only read the lore, right? That's fine, I can understand that. But as a whole, to the average person who does wargaming or does 40k, that's going to be a side part to what they actually get into the hobby for. Most of it is for the models. And again, it doesn't matter which game you play, Judge Dredd, Bolt Action, Kings of War, most people get into these hobbies to build and paint models, and that is the most important part. So this whole, Warhammer 40k is woke now is kind of a fallacious argument, because at the end of the day, and this is going to upset a lot of people, 40k the hobby centers around models and building models, and that's it. That's what the central part of the hobby is. That's what the most important part of the hobby is, and that's the one thing that cannot be politicized by the left or the right. It cannot be that way, because once again, it's up to you how you do it. When you're reading a book, you're getting told a story. You are reading it through someone else's eyes. It's a story you're being told. Whereas if you're playing a game, you're telling a story. It's your story to tell, and it can be personal, and you can tell some great stories out of games. And I remember one time back in the day, I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles. My Skaven Lightning Thrower decided to go a complete loop, decimate a squad of clan rats, and then explode. And that was just so amusing. It amused me no end. And that's just a story I get to tell. That's not a story which I'm going to read from a book. That's a personal story that happened to me in a game. And that's what wargaming is about. It's not about what the company wants you to do or how the story goes. It's how you want to tell the story of your army and how many battles they've won and who won and whether or not, your great eagle from Wildest Exodus got shot down by a bloody Tesla nut. What? Seriously. A big-ass great eagle just owned by a single robot. Oh, it was just a bad day for me. Or that day, that was a horrid day. I was just rolling bad on my grit saves that day. Yes, big monsters getting wrecked by little robots was not a fun day for me. Amusing, but not fun. And so that's kind of a thing. And this whole idea that, the politics are going to ruin wargaming is such a fallacious argument, because what they're really saying is it's going to ruin the books, not wargaming. Because again, it seriously cannot. So I'm really in the opinion at this moment that a lot of companies are doing it, by the way, and they like Parabellum does it in a way, but they've actually made their world far more personal, because you kind of tell the story and they change the world to the communities and what the community's doing rather than writing it themselves, which is great personal touch. Wildest Exodus, they have one novel out, and it's very fit into the theme. It doesn't affect the gameplay at all. It's not, you don't get the rules for Willa Shaw based on what she does within that book. Her model is completely separate. Yeah, you can read the book. It's a good book. It's called Lazarus, and you can get it from Whaling Games. Links down below. And it's fantastic. I really like it, by the way. Or Heavy Rail, the graphic novel, if they have any of them left. Again, another great story. Includes my favourite girl, Walks Looking. And yeah, see, but these other companies are keeping the lore separate from the game because it's a side thing. It's fluff to make the world that you're playing in far more immersive. It's like Fallout, Skyrim, or any of those RPGs which have deep lore within the game. And you got to read it and you learn it as you go along. But you don't have to. You can still enjoy these games without, reading all the books or reading all the computer screens. It's the same thing with wargaming. The lore isn't a necessity to enjoy wargaming, whereas building, painting, and playing, those are the important parts of this hobby. They're the things that people should be focusing on rather than complaining that something happened in the book that they didn't like. I'm more concerned about a model that looks awful than some piddly ass problem that happens in a book which, wasn't a good book in the first place. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just a kind of something that's been on my mind for a while and I just want to get it out. And I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day, and I hope to see you all again soon. If you wish to save money on your wargaming, as always, Raylan Games is down below. As always, like I said. And up to 20% off, and free delivery after £20. And plus they have a nice point system, which is about an extra 1% off overall. There's also Forbidden Planet for comics, DVDs, mangas, and plushies, and toys, and all that other cool groovy stuff. There's my merchandise, all done by me, designed by me, it's all mine. There's my comic, which was drawn and written by me, and inked by me. That's down below as well. If you really want to support a channel, I would love you to buy one of my books. I think I spent so much time on it, I love doing it. Especially if you want to see Little Red Riding Hood go ham on some cyborg Lovecraftian werewolves. And there is Skyforge. Skyforge, good friend of mine. Don't get paid to advertise him. I just want him up that Google algorithm. Let's do that. And finally, Patreon, because business. Bye-bye.